Bernie Sanders and Ted Cruz had a debate last night where they spoke about the Donald Trump / Republican tax plan that they're now in the process of crafting the details and attempting to pass. And Bernie answered a question from a Trump supporter in the audience. And this is a special clip, in my opinion, because Bernie breaks it down in his answer. And then it appears like he breaks this poor man's brain.
Senator Sanders, over my lifetime, all we've seen is more government and more expenses. Cutting taxes from top to bottom or bottom to top, however you view it. Then we'll give some relief to the burdensome expenses all Americans face. Why would you not want a tax cut across the board for all Americans?
Well, I do want a tax cut for the middle class and working families. But when the top 1/10 of 1% now owns as much wealth as the bottom 90%, when you have a handful of people with incredible wealth and power, no, I'm afraid that I will not support tax breaks for billionaires. Now, I don't know if you were there when President Trump came to Pennsylvania?
I was.
Yeah. And President Trump was touting, as I understand it, the repeal of the estate tax, something that Senator Cruz supports. That's why he was there, correct? Let's talk about the repeal of the estate tax. The only people who benefit from that are the top 2/10 of 1%. 99.8% of the people do not pay a nickel in estate taxes. Senator Cruz will tell you about all the farmers and the ranchers. Well, Ted, there are 80 of them in the United States. The overwhelming majority of beneficiaries of this estate tax that Trump was supporting are people like the Walton family. Do you really believe that the wealthiest family in America should get a tax break of up to $50 billion, that the Koch brothers should get a tax break of up to $30 billion? Do you think that makes sense?
I did say all Americans.
Well, do you think that the wealthy should not get tax breaks?
I did say all Americans.
Okay, well, I happen not to believe that the Koch brothers need a tax break.
Oh, that was embarrassing. Oh, that was hard to watch. And Bernie's face at the end says it all. Because he made this ironclad argument, basically, painting a picture, and an accurate one at that lets this guy know, listen, if you don't agree with me on the next point, you will expose yourself as the world's biggest rube. You will be chump number one in front of the eyes of the nation. Millions of people watching this right now. And then he explains, okay, so what the Republicans do is they use this idea, and they'll say it, but they're lying. Tax cuts for the middle class and the poor. They'll say that, but then when you look at the details of their plan, they're really talking about cutting taxes for the rich. And then he says, what do you want, like the Walton family to get, what did he say, like another $50 billion? And by the way, some of the taxes that we're talking about cutting here, and in one case eliminating the estate tax, yes, it would give the richest people in the country billions more dollars. Billions more dollars. So we're talking about people who are already so rich, they have no clue what to do with all their money. They're so rich that the amount of wealth that they have literally threatens the stability of governments. That's how fucking rich they are. When you're a multi-billionaire, you have the ability to purchase elections. That's what this is. We live in an oligarchy. So he says, these people are already billionaires. You are going to support a tax cut to give them billions of dollars. You think that they deserve billions more dollars? And then, by the way, another point, Bernie didn't bring this up at this point of the debate, but he brought it up at a different point of the debate. And even one of the questioners brought it up. They said, hold on, Ted Cruz. I thought that you were you're big on hard work, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So then why on earth are you not for the estate tax? Because this just creates more Paris Hiltons. This just makes it so that if Grandpapa did all the work, he can pass on billions of untaxed dollars to the spoiled brat kid who's never done anything. So then every argument you've ever made against welfare, for example, shut the fuck up, because you're undermining that argument. You say, oh, come on, we can't give these poor people enough money to get food for their kids and to pay the light bill. Gross. Are you kidding me? We can't give people an extra couple $100 a month. That makes them lazy. But somehow giving spoiled brat kids multi-billions of dollars doesn't make them lazy, and you're in favor of that. It's almost like Ted Cruz is doing the bidding of his donors. It's almost like it's more about being a puppet to corporations. So Bernie goes down the list, and he says, is that what you want? You want to give billions of dollars more to people who are already billionaires? I did say all Americans. And then Bernie paused, and you saw his face like, the fuck? And he's like, really? So you think people who are billionaires, you want to give them more billions of dollars? I did say cut taxes for all Americans. You know, he could have said anything there. Bernie could have said anything. He said, he could have stated the actual fact, not just for the U.S., but for the world. I think most of these people live in the U.S., though. The richest 8 people, I think it is, or 6 people, I forget if it's 6 or 8, they have more wealth than the bottom 50% of the world combined. So like 8 people more than like 3.5 billion people combined. So Bernie could have said, oh, you want to give everybody a tax cut? You want to give the people who have more than half the world combined more money? Do they need that? That's what they need? They need more money? When fucking Flint, Michigan doesn't even have clean water? Our infrastructure gets a grade of D. We got 45,000 people dying every year because they don't have access to basic healthcare. You want to give them more money, billions of dollars more money. He would have said the same thing because he broke his brain. His brain is just like malfunction, cannot think. Bernie making logical points, cannot rebut, just restate thesis. I did say cut tax for everybody. Bernie could have said, if if one person had all the money in the world and everybody else had nothing, you really want to cut taxes for that one person who has all the money in the world? He'd say, yeah, I did say all people. That is what I said, goddammit. Stupid liberals. Can't even understand that when somebody's got all the money in the world, they deserve more of all the money in the world, and everybody else can kick rocks. Is kick rocks a thing? Is that a saying or a phrase? Anyway, that's just disheartening because that's a guy who's just drunk on Fox News, where it doesn't matter what logical point you make. His mind is made up. His mind is made. It doesn't matter what you say. That's it. Doesn't matter what you say. That's one of the guys who it doesn't matter if a Republican was running on a platform of, I will rape your grandmother. He'd say, goddamn liberals don't even understand that raping a grandma can be a noble thing. Goddamn liberals. So there are people who are too far gone. That guy's one of them, just so everybody knows. And I also love because it means nothing when they say this shit. Like when he started off his question, he's like, Senator Sanders, we've had more government and more regulations, more taxes. What does that mean? We've had more government and more regulation and more taxes. Okay, so which taxes are you referring to? Go ahead, buddy. You tell what taxes are you referring? We've had more taxes. What does that mean? We've had what regulations are you talking about? We've had more government. What does that mean? What does that mean? Please tell me. What specific things are you referring to? Because they just say shit. They just say shit in their own bubble. It's like, I think does this make sense? Doesn't even matter if it makes sense. I'm just going to say it. And you saw Bernie's face then, too. He's like, the fuck is this guy talking about? Like, I feel bad for the guy because he has no idea that Bernie's policies would help him a lot more. But then the other part of me doesn't feel bad for the guy because there are people who, once you explain it to them and they sit down, they'll go, man, that does kind of make sense. Like when Bernie was in the room with all the Trump voters in West Virginia, he argued for Medicare for all and free college and a living wage, and a room full of Trump voters in West Virginia gave him a standing ovation. So those people are examples of Republicans who are not beyond help. Those are people who voted for Trump because they thought he'd be more anti-establishment than Hillary Clinton, and they thought Trump would fight the trade deals to keep their jobs in the U.S. That's why those people voted for Trump. This is a guy who voted for Trump just because Trump's the Republican, and I vote for the Republicans no matter what, under any circumstance. I don't even care about the details or the facts. That's it. I'm just going to vote for Republicans because that's what I do. I just vote for Republicans. So, Bernie, you tried, man. You tried. And also, again, and this was a theme throughout the debate. I unfortunately don't think Bernie stressed this point enough because he needs to in order to really make the Democrats' case ironclad. But every time Bernie said, actually, yeah, I'm totally fine with cutting middle-class taxes and taxes for poor people, Ted Cruz would then strawman Bernie and say, no, you want to raise taxes for everybody. And Bernie would say, no, I want to cut taxes for middle-class people and poor people. But he didn't stress that point enough, and I feel like that's one of the only arguments that Republicans have to pretend, and they are pretending because they don't actually do it, like they're the party of the little guy, the average Joe. I've experienced that myself firsthand, where I talk to people who vote Republican, and they genuinely believe that Republicans are the party of working people. And I'm like flabbergasted, like, what on earth makes you say that? And that's the only point they have. They say, well, Republicans want me to keep more of my money. Democrats don't. Republicans want to raise my taxes. Republicans want to lower my taxes. Democrats want to raise my taxes. Now, again, that is factually not true. Not true at all. When you look at the tax proposals from Democrats and Republicans going back decades now, it is 100% of the time the case that the Democrat would cut taxes more for the bottom 90% of Americans. And then depending on which Democrat you talk about, some of them would raise taxes for the top 10%, some of them raise taxes for the top 5%, some of them raise taxes for the top 1%. Okay, but for 90% of the American people under every Democratic proposal, your taxes get cut more. And inevitably and invariably, everybody who says the Democrats want to raise my taxes are people who are part of that bottom 90% who would benefit from Democrats' tax plans. And the Republicans, all they've done is marketing 101. That's it. So they've marketed themselves as, we are the party of tax cuts, we are the party of tax cuts, we are the party of tax cuts. And Ted Cruz said multiple times in that debate, hey, I want to cut your taxes. I want to cut the middle class taxes. And Bernie did an okay job, but he didn't really hammer the point home enough that what Ted is saying is not accurate based on the plan. So he's saying to you, I am using words coming out of my mouth to tell you that I'm in favor of middle class tax cuts. But when you actually go to what is written on paper and what they want to become law, that is not true. In fact, they net raise taxes on middle class and poor people. One of the ways they do that is they lessen the number of brackets from like 7 brackets, I think, to 3. So the bottom bracket goes from like 10% to 12%. That's an increase of 2% for the bottom fucking bracket. That's raising taxes on the middle class and the poor. And they get rid of the SALT deduction, for example, which makes it so that you can deduct your state and local taxes in certain states. They say, no, we're going to get rid of that, which is a net tax increase on about 30% of the middle class. So, Bernie did a good job, but oftentimes what happens is, and look, he's guilty of this. I'm guilty of this too sometimes because it's a hard thing when Ted Cruz is spewing, countless bullshit every minute. Like every minute there's like 8 lies in what he's saying. It's hard to keep up with all of it. But he didn't do as good of a job rebutting the specific points of Ted Cruz. He just, when they went to Bernie, oftentimes in the debate, he would go to almost like his stump speech on the problem. Oh, okay, here's the 1% has the money and all that stuff, which is all true. But, I would like it if there was a direct rebuttal of all of Ted Cruz's points, because Ted Cruz kept stressing, I want to cut middle-class taxes, even though that's not true. The plan does not cut middle-class taxes. And he kept strawmanning Bernie and saying, you want to raise people's taxes. And every now and then Bernie would say, no, I want to cut taxes for middle-class and poor people. But it wasn't enough to really get it through the minds of a lot of people. And, I think the main point is, they're presenting such different pictures of reality. It just becomes a matter of who you trust more. If somebody's already inclined to trust Ted Cruz more than Bernie Sanders, then there's no way that they're going to leave that debate thinking Bernie Sanders won, because they already think Ted Cruz is a straight shooter, even though he's not. Bernie Sanders, when you actually fucking fact check, of course Bernie's telling the truth about everything and Ted Cruz is making shit up. But a lot of people go into it with their confirmation bias, so they'll leave going, yeah, Ted Cruz won. So, but that was an interesting clip nonetheless. You have Bernie Sanders really breaking that guy's brain because he makes a good point. The guy that doesn't know how to compute it, and he's like, yeah, I said cut everybody's taxes. Bernie's like, really? You want to give $50 billion more to the Walton family when 6 of them have more money than the bottom 50% of Americans combined. Think about that. 6 people have more wealth than half of Americans combined. You want to give them billions of dollars more? He's like, yeah, cut taxes. He thinks in bumper stickers. Bernie broke that guy's brain.